Good evening. You're listening live to the Extreme Movie Show. I am your host, Rob, broadcasting to you from the Pinos Palace in the Extreme Studios just west of Orlando, Florida. I have from the great Midwest joining me tonight, RDV. So we're going to be covering a movie called Out of the Past, but we are taking a look at it with a very special guest star, one of the OGs from our channel from way back in the day, Mr. Easy E, Eric Breen himself. Eric, good evening, sir. It's good to see you again. You're a vision from out of my past, and I'm glad that you're still here. Robert Mitchum, sir. God, how good is this movie?
I would say it's a top 5 all-time noir.
Yes.
I've been working on my all-time top 25 movies, and it's somewhere in the early teens, I would say, or somewhere between 11 and 15, because I absolutely love this movie. I've seen it 3 or 4 times now, and it has everything you would want in a noir movie.
It is it's certainly fantastic. We're going to be talking about some key scenes here. Now, RDV, I know you and I, when we kind of talk about stuff or whatever, I always say I'm the 50s guy, or the 80s guy, you're the 90s guy or whatever, because of our age and all that. I know that one of the more interesting comments you've made recently when we talk about films, and we've had a brief discussion of, is that there's not necessarily a lot of wholesome films up there. And one of the reasons why in the 80s things were popular is because you had happy endings, whether they are bullshit, unrealistic, or whatever, but it gave the audience what they want here. I love the fact that in the movie, like Out of the Past tonight, there's a bunch of cynical stuff in here too. And I remember when we reviewed this like 3-4 years ago, certain things you liked, certain things you didn't like. As a second watch for you, what stood out for you? Did something pop out that you liked more, or caught your attention differently this time? Start us off, please.
This time I focused less on the story. I looked more at the background scenery, everything, like whether it's the gas pump, the diner, the little things. I also noticed this time there's a lot more people smoking this time around watching it. I watched it 2 years ago. Kirk Douglas's performance as a slimy, weaselly prick, guy, and Jane Greer's performance is like, well, is she just heartless, or is she confused? Is she manipulative? She's very manipulative.
Just a woman.
Yeah. No. But overall, you see that. I love the scene in here with Robert Mitchum, and he's got the girl plays Anne, Virginia Huston. They're in the car, and he's telling her a story as they're driving out to Lake Tahoe. Stuff stuff like Lake Tahoe. I didn't catch that the first time I watched that, so I was looking up, like it's all California, San Francisco stuff. So I love that it's kind of like people too, like they tell a story and then it goes wishy-washy. Instead of doing that, it just goes right into the story, and you get this whole path set up where he's, a detective, and he's hired, by Kirk Douglas to go track down this girl, played by Jane Greer, who basically had shot him and took 40 grand of his, and of course, and I just love how it sets up into that. But overall, this everything, like I forgot about the guy when they meet that Robert Mitchum and meets at the little like bar in like Mexico or Mexico City, and the guy is like, oh, excuse me, you want to buy stuff? Because he's tourist, he's a con artist. He's like, you want to buy these jewelry, earrings? You want to buy? How about I take a tour and stuff? And he's just like, as I forget about little things like that.
Yeah, it's interesting because one of the things when I was younger watching these films too is I one being black and white was interesting because it looked different, right? But then some of the rawness of people like Humphrey Bogart that we've talked about, Mitchum's another one to me, although he's a bit of a different personality, stood out. Being older, I tend to focus more on the adult aspect of it here too. And I think one of the things that clearly stands out here, besides how wonderfully it's shot and how great it looks, I agree with you on that. I'm finding myself watching all that stuff in the background too, is that for me, and this is something, Eric, you've watched more noir than I have. I watched a decent amount, I think, but I wouldn't consider myself an expert. I do find that noir movies are supposed to be cynical, untrustworthy, but the fatal flaw is not that there's a woman that you can't trust, because that's really the essence of them. It's that as a man, for a moment, while the seduction's going on, there's that moment of like possibility that it could happen, and you both feel it briefly, but then reality comes crashing in, oftentimes in a way you don't want. And that's how the real life works. You can't pick and choose everything. There are no happy endings and all that kind of crap there too. But as far as relationships go, which I think is the heart of this movie, do you see that as like a major thing to this movie, or noir in general?
Let's say in relation to this movie, the Kathie Moffat character may be the most cunning bitch in any noir movie, because the entire movie it's like she's Lucy with the football, and everybody else in the movie is Charlie Brown.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point, you think, well, maybe she's going to leave it there and let him kick it. But no, when you think about it, she basically, knocks off everybody.
Yeah.
Jeff's partner, Whit.
Yep.
I can't remember if she killed Joe or not, and then she ends up killing Jeff. I mean, it's and the whole time it's like, you want to believe her because she's so good at what she does. But and like I said, it's what's that Billy Joel song, Stiletto? That's her. I mean, you just really you want to believe, because I said she had enough to where Whit takes her back even after she steals 40 grand and shoots him. And you got the feeling when he came back, when Jeff's called to go to work for Whit again, and she's there, and you don't get the feeling that she's a hostage. I mean, it's like she's there because that's where she wants to be. Because right at the moment, Whit is the means to an end. So the whole movie is just her, playing everybody. And I said it's a terrific performance, by Jane Greer. I mean, I think she's in a lot of, it's hard to be the standout character in a movie with Robert Mitchum and Kirk Douglas, and the guy that played Joe Stefanos. That if you see enough of these movies, he's that guy.
Paul
There's certain guys that if you need that guy, it's Peter Lorre. If you need that guy, it's Sidney Greenstreet. If you need that guy, it's the guy that played Joe. I mean, so she does.
It's Paul Valentino.
RV, one of the things about relationships is that, like, it's pretty obvious early on that he's an older guy with a younger woman, but they seem to have what every person desires, especially when you're a mature man. That's peace of mind with somebody you care about that cares about you and all that. Do you like the fact that he has to go basically repent for his sins in the previous life or whatever? Like, because there's almost no way out of it, right?
The one thing is, Joe finds him in the beginning, and I was wondered why he even agreed to go back and stuff.
Probably because they'd kill her,
kill Anne. You think
they would force him to do it, right?
Because I never really understood why they wanted to come back, and the fact that she's there now, and they want, and I just like at this point, it's like he was out. He somehow he got Anne, or not got Anne, but he got back Jane Greer's character back them. He was surprised to see her when because just she came crawling back. So it was like he didn't steal any money from the guy. So I just kind of felt it was kind of weird why he kind of went back. And I understand he wanted to close the chapter so he could move on, be with Anne. But I wonder if he felt like he just wasn't going to be back with Anne no matter what.
No, he went back because somewhere in his mind, it was the thought of hoping that he could run into Kathie again. I absolutely convinced of that, because he goes back so he can get him, because the second time around it's to go find the incriminating evidence that the lawyer has that he's blackmailing Whit with, and that's when he hires Jeff to go get. But I think in the back of his mind he hopes that when he goes there that somehow there's a way he'll see Kathie again, because anybody that gets into her orbit, to use a modern term, wants her.
Yeah.
So that's I think the only person that I don't think they've seen her, but she I said Anne is that girl you should be with. Kathie's the girl that you want to be with, and that's.
Rod Stewart said this best in that song, like Infatuation or something of those older sexual songs, because they always say that the first attraction is physical. And not that that's not important, but the whole idea, exactly what you're saying, Eric, is that, we can sit there and say as men, we value this in women and we're superficial. That's all we want. Well, no, that's just what catches our eye. What we really want is peace of mind. So he is with the woman he should be, but there's the woman that you want. And because you want her so much, you've given her the power and control in the relationship, and she knows it and uses it to her advantage. She's just very professional in how she does it, rather than just rubbing in your face or laughing at you like a lot of dopey high school stuff there too. And so, RD, that was one of the things that when I was watching this back again today, I was like, yeah, it was clear that she was willing to use a current term that some people use, monkey branch, jump in the arms of whoever who had the best resources to get what she wanted out of it, because that's sort of what it comes down to. And you know, he gets hired because he's competent and he has value to him for it. So it's really amazing, because I think that the end message here is, no matter who you're rooting for here, which obviously should be Robert Mitchum, is that you're right. All the guys do get kind of played by her, and you would think at some point they look at each other, stop and go, what the fuck, man? We're letting the chick do this to us. But it goes back to the one line I think that Kirk Douglas says early on, or like, you know, why her? We're like that. Well, if you saw, well, there's a million women there, and he's like, not like her. And the point is when she walks in and she's got that dress on and that hat, the way they filmed and shot it, it's just the perfect combination of. And I think a lot of guys have that experience in their life where that one woman, they just turn, boom, and it hits them like a ton of bricks.
Robert Mitchum said that to Kirk Douglas. He said, "Yeah, is it okay? There's a bunch of dames like her, you know." He's like, "Yeah, but you know," and he says like nothing like her though.
It just shows that you can be a powerful man and have it all, but you still are going to meet someone that you can't control yourself over, and that's not healthy in a relationship, right? I mean, that's what this is. That's what noir is. It's the thought that, oh, maybe we'll have our happy time here or whatever, and all that, where we're getting together. We see it here in the past. No, we can't have that because now reality creeps in, then bad shit happens or whatever, and then you just feel kind of bitter about it because everyone's trying to be happy what they think is, and of course they can't do it. I mean, that's relationships in a nutshell. But the cynical stuff is what I think might turn some people off, RDV, like you wanting a happy ending that you don't always get in these films. Not always, but it said like it just, if you watch a lot of these movies, you will get depressed, or you'll learn, don't be like that guy. You know, don't do his mistakes.
Well, that's if you're wanting happy endings, that you're watching the wrong genre, because that's rule number one.
Well,
nobody has a happy ending.
That's right.
But not all noirs are like that, though.
Majority of
them. They all
are, but not all.
They have certain traits that make them noir. Because as I watched Sunset Boulevard again today, I never really thought of that as a noir movie until I thought it. Then I go, well, it begins with William Holden, the main character, is face down, dead in a pool, and he's narrating the story posthumously. So, he does not have a happy ending. And so I guess in that regard it is noir, but I said, I said there's certain things. There's always got to be, like I said, a Jane Greer like character, and a hapless hero. In this case, it's Robert Mitchum. And but what makes this, I think, different, a little like a cut above, maybe Kirk Douglas's character. He does a great job of playing somebody that's a little bit young. Maybe he's out a little bit over his skis, because I think he genuinely respects Jeff.
I agree.
To go, because he brings him back the second time to go to work for him, even though, unbeknownst to Whit, because he did find her, he, as far as Whit knows, he failed the first time. He said she got away. But he brought him back and hired him again because there's something about Jeff that he liked and respected. Which I think you don't see that in every noir movie.
Yeah. One thing I did like about this movie was the narration, the quotes and stuff, just with him talking about everything. He's like, once he realized, that that this girl isn't really good for him, Jane Greer, he's like, you're a leaf that the wind blows from one gutter to another, Other quotes he had, and it's like, what do you say? He's like, I never saw her in the daytime. We seemed to live by night. What was left of the day went away like a pack of cigarettes she smoked. I didn't know where she lived. I never followed her. All I had ever gone on was a place and time to see her again. I don't know what we were waiting for. Maybe we thought the world would end. Maybe we thought it was a dream and we'd wake up in a hangover in Niagara Falls. I wired Whit, but I didn't tell him. I'm in Acapulco, I said. I wish you were here. And every night I went to meet her. How did I know she ever show? I didn't. What stopped her from taking the boat to Chile or Guatemala? Nothing. How big of a chump could you be? I was going to find out. And then she'd come along like a school was out, and everything else was just a stone which sailed at the sea. Like, it's really deep in her monologues.
I love it. I've always loved voiceovers and monologues, whatever you want. I've always have. Some people think it's a shitty way to like storytell or give fill-in, or some people say it's a way to kind of say if you got a bad script, go ahead and add it in or something, or have it as an option. And I think the thing with film noir, though, it's a vibe, and I think at the essence it's a feeling kind of movie, because if you try to follow the plot the first time, there's so much going on with the dialogue, like you're talking about, which is nonstop. It can be very sharp, but once you understand what's going on, you watch the second or third time, I think you can watch it in different ways, which I think makes the movie very good. It's very layered that way. I just watch a movie like this and I go, God damn, how good is Robert Mitchum? Are you really going to get anything better? How come there's not a style of film like that today that deals with relationships in an adult, mature way that's a bit cynical? And the only way I could say is because everything's just narrow casted these days. And it's a shame, because if you wanted to go watch something that had a happy ending, was saccharine sweet or religious based, they were there. If you wanted to watch something like this, it's there too. It doesn't have to be guns and guts, but the threat is really the fact that you're not in control. It's not guns and bullets or the bad guy or whatever. And the whole thing with the character we were just talking about, Eric, was that I do think Douglas's performance is very good. I like the idea that you mentioned how he seemed like a younger guy, but as a guy, we can all respect other guys, and the guys I think we all put in a pecking order, right? Whether we like them or not, we know if they're competent or not, or if we're in a group who can do what. And I think the whole thing with Douglas' characters, he reminds me of a lot of young up-and-coming guys that do the work. They're not necessarily owed anything because they do the work, but he does believe he's as good as he should be, even if he's really not at that point in his life. So it is amazing that someone as good as him still is just like her. He just can't function because of this woman. And most guys have a woman that they just go, I'd do anything for her. And that's really not the right answer, because you're doing it because she's making you do it, rather than you're willing to like sacrifice yourself, or because she's a good woman who brings you peace of mind and happiness, that kind of thing. Totally different vibe to it. Much more apparent on another rewatch.
Yeah, he didn't have a prayer.
No, he was done.
He got to where he was very young, probably with very little in the way of obstacles. Jeff Markham, whichever was his real name, he, being a private detective, he'd probably seen more, done more, and I think there was something about him that just, in his head, he knew that Anne was who he should be with, but then the heart told him a different story. Whit was doomed from the first scene also. That's something you don't really think about as you're watching it, but then you get to the end and you find him dead on the floor again. Yeah, he was probably the only one that really had, probably the smartest one of the bunch. It was probably Joe. But yeah,
But we're all human, so you can be smart, you can be dumb. It doesn't mean you're going to get what you want, and you don't necessarily have an advantage, right? I get shit on a lot for how much I really love the last movie, Eyes Wide Shut, that Kubrick did, right? And some people say he was murdered rather than he just died right after it got released, and the real movie's different and all that. But one of the scenes that really stood out to me that I know a lot of people lampooned was, because there's a lot of Tom Cruise hate in here, is when they're smoking pot around the holidays, and they're kind of chilling or whatever. And they get into the discussion about other people. And she basically says, hey, yeah, you're good and all that. I'm happy we're together. But there's this one time, this one guy looked at me and I would have fucked him like crazy, and I would have given up everything for it. And I can't tell me it's right or wrong. I'm just telling you that's how it is. And that's what triggers his ass to kind of like go find out what the whole thing is. And so supposedly at the end, the last line that people thought was really dumb, they laughed in the theater when I saw it, was she says to him, well, I guess there's one thing we need to go do. And of course, it's the family bond thing. And he's like, well, what's that? She goes, fuck. And everyone's laughing. What you don't see in the movie is that while they're doing that, trying to focus on themselves, the two old guys that have been following them around the entire time steal her kid, or she gives her kid up with them. And there's other stuff that goes on. But it's that thing where no matter how good you've got it, there's going to be something that can get to you, and I think that's where we're all kind of helpless. And I think that's the thing. If you haven't felt that as an adult, if you haven't made mistakes in relationships, if you haven't suffered and all that, it's hard to appreciate what they're like. So that's why I always feel like they're like a mature type of movie. And that's not a knock on anybody watching films, but I swear there's not very many of them like that today. Am I wrong?
Well, I think one reason why these kind of movies aren't being made anymore is this was made, nuts in the middle of the Hays Code, which I think forced writers to be more creative.
Yeah.
Because there were so many things you couldn't do. Well, there are no restrictions on anything anymore. And I think it's that, and I think that audiences, I don't know if enough of an audience would have the patience to sit through these kind of movies anymore, because they seem to want the blockbusters, the popcorn movies.
Yeah.
And these are niche, it's like niche storytelling. And I don't know if there's if there's movies like this being made in Europe or other places, not America, but I do think that the not having these movies they're really well done, and they're really smart. And I said I just don't know that you need to that writers today can pull that off the way they used to, or just movie makers in general. I mean, there are, but I don't know how well something like this would do today. And unfortunately, I don't think we're ever going to find out again.
Specifically, like noir stuff. The closest we got to anything like it was Dick Tracy, but that was a comic book thing.
What about the Sin City stuff, RDV? I'm not. What were those?
Sin City was yes and no. It was very stylish, but it wasn't. I don't think it holds a candle to anything like this does.
It had noir elements. It's kind of like I think like a tribute to them.
Yeah, and
there are, but Sin City's more of an ensemble. So I mean, it's like who is the main character? Would it be the Bruce Willis character?
There's a multi-character thing story.
Yeah, so I don't know, but I mean it's close. But yeah, it's
I'm trying to think.
We mentioned Against All Odds, which was a remake of this.
Except for James Woods, who I love, I think does come across as an obnoxious dick because he's so good at it. Whereas here, I don't think Kirk Douglas does. And I think that's a bit more powerful and nuanced.
He comes off of a slime ball, and he says, like,
I
own you. That's what he said to him.
But Vegas was playground for Mafia, and Tahoe was kind of like a resort for that as well. So he gave me kind of like Mafia vibes.
Yeah. Jane Greer actually played the mother of her character in this movie in the Against All Odds.
Yeah.
I want to bring up something. Theresa Harris is in here. She plays the Black Harlem, informant that he goes to see, and he treats her with respect. This is a movie that came out in 1947. Nowadays, I don't know if they would even they probably scoff at. They say well, everything's all about racism. It was interesting because he was respectful for her, and a lot of people forget that not everybody back then day was racist towards or a womanizer or that stuff.
Oh yeah. People just think automatically everybody was
racist. I like the fact that he here, buy him 2 more drinks. He gave me information whether it's truth or not. Here, you give me your time. I thought that was very nice. And they didn't really treat him like, oh, here comes Whitey. Because I hate that when people put that in the movies, because it's not necessarily true, and it always seems like a stereotype, and it's just horrible. So I appreciated that. Her as Eunice Leonard, just basically being kind to him, and in kindness he was kind back to her. So I'm just saying that little key moments like that, I love seeing that, especially in the 1940s kind of like movies like that, because today we're led to believe, that shouldn't be real, that shouldn't be in these movies.
You actually see that a decent amount in movies of this era. It's almost like as it was happening, it wasn't that big a deal, but now because it was happening in the present. Now, if you're making a movie in 2025 of something that happened in 1947, you're just going to assume
Yeah,
it was
like
that
that,
way.
like the movie with the girls, the World War II. They were the nurses or whatever. The mail post office, whatever it was, came on Netflix a couple of years ago. It was all about racism.
That's all I've got.
That's Netflix.
What's that?
It's Netflix. But getting back to the characters, like I said, yeah, Jane Greer was a knockout here. She looked very beautiful in here too.
Yep.
I personally had a thing for Virginia Huston. I thought she was better looking.
Jane Greer was beautiful, but not in your face beautiful, because like the actress that played the in your face beauties was Rhonda Fleming. I mean, that she had a career doing that.
Yeah.
But Jane Greer was just a beauty. I mean, that's and it was real. Yeah, she wasn't over made up. She wasn't, she just had it.
Yeah, you had Jack Fisher, played by Stephen Brodie, was in here too, or Steve Brodie. Yeah, it was from El Dorado in Butler County in South Carolina. He's actually from Kansas, so he's from your area, right over there. Wow. He adopted his screen name from memory from Steve Brodie, a daredevil who claimed to have jumped the Brooklyn Bridge in 1886 and survived. Did not know that.
There was one thing in this movie though that kind of deviates from the traditional noir.
Yeah.
Is Anne does, if you just use a little imagination, she does get a happy ending, because when they ask Dickie if he was going to go off with Kathie, even though he wasn't going to, I think he had finally broken her spell on him, but it was too late. She shot him, and he says yes, so she won't spend her life running away from him. And she ends up with the man who was probably better for her anyway, and the nice steady policeman Jim.
Yeah, the little Dickie kid. Yeah, because it was based on breaking the cycle.
Competitive fishing contest he'd ever entered.
Because the whole point with the whole movie is about breaking the cycle of your past. Trying to escape your past, and she never would have escaped her past if she wouldn't have moved on.
So I said, I'm not saying that was that stretched. The suspension of disbelief, but I will believe a man can fly before I believe he can do that with that fishing pole.
Yeah. Also,
a great scene.
Also, the ending scene here where she shoots Jane shoots Robert, and then she immediately gets riddled by bullets by the cops. I'm like, what was the point of shooting Robert? It's like, I don't know, guys. It's just kind of like a lot of those spur moment things.
Because he fucked up and he has to pay for it. That's life.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah.
Glenzer says it's hold on, let's Glenzer. There's comments on here. He says it's nowhere near as good, but the remake of this Odds Against Odds was decent.
Hey, Linzer, I mean, if you listen to some of our older stuff from the 80s and all that, I grew up as an 80s teenager and all that, and I got to tell you, for me, hands down, I think Rachel Ward is like the 80s classic, perfect version of somebody like this. Should complete Smoke Show for it. I thought they caught the spirit of it, but I agree with you. It's nowhere near as good. But again, that song was everywhere. You could not stop Phil Collins in the 80s. The House Always Wins if you're Phil Collins. I mean, just unstoppable. But it had a little bit of that feel that I think a lot of the movies don't have, because you're like, Jeff Bridges, what's going on? He was hunky, right? So he goes down there and was it Acapulco, wherever it was in the new one, gets her and they have their little fling and all that. So you're like, oh, wow, that's what happens. And then she's back with Dickhead. I mean, and as a kid, you're watching this going, well, yeah, that's exactly how it is. It's just they're more dopey about it, like in high school stuff. The adult stuff, they don't even mess with the high school stuff. They get right into it. Yeah, you fucked her, but she's mine. Okay, you're going to bring her back to me. I mean, that's just how it is.
Getting back to this,
it lacks the bitterness, I think, but it's still
against all odds was out of the past without the restrictions of the Hays Code.
Some people were describing this movie, said it did lack one of the other more popular noir things, was like a decaying city or escape or area, kind of like grimy, kind of right. like Maltese Falcon had and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It was too
You
clean.
can do that with nature. You can do that with something else as like a character, right? Like in Gotham, that would be Cain Castle that represents the whatever. But yeah, well, whatever their flaws are, RDV, I don't think you could argue that they make up for it in smoking, because this is probably one of the all-time smoking movies there ever is. Personally, I mean, Robert Mitchum with the cigarette in his mouth. I mean, I'm not a smoker. I've had the occasional cigar and stuff like that. It's more of a treat than anything. But when him and Kirk Douglas together, I'm going, okay, who's got the longer cigarette? Who's going to take the bigger puff? I mean, it's like they're subconsciously fighting each other while they're smoking because they're getting so irritated.
Yeah,
and Eric, you know how this would be when somebody, when you'd be acting and you've got that cigarette lit up and you're getting ready to talk and you get so mad and you go, and then you take that big old puff and then you blow it out and then you say something. That's acting.
Yeah, I was kind of so when they first meet the second time. All these years, so I guess it's like 10 years. He goes out there and he's still got a cigarette in his mouth and stuff. And then, like, he's got the Mark's got the little, or Robert Mitchum's got the little small one. Mm-hmm. And then he goes in there. He's like, "Your cigarette?" He's like, "No, I already got a smoky treat right here." And then he takes his little bud and he lights. He lighted they pressed tips together, lit the cigarette kisses. What they call it, I guess. But and I thought that was kind of funny that he did that as like, he's like, "Here, I'll suck on mine here, and then you put your longer one, and then light it." Because like normally you didn't do that. I never seen guys do that. But if I've seen a guy and a girl do that, or he'll have a lighter. I thought that was like kind of weird.
Well, if you're a guy, you'd have a lighter, you would light it in front of the woman.
Yeah,
that was the way to kind of introduce yourself, right?
But
I've seen guys do that. It looks weird because it looks like sword fighting, right?
By the way, Vimy said, "Why did she bother to shoot him when she was about to get blown away?" Because he had just said, if I'm going to die, I die, but I'm going to die last. No, you're not. Boom.
Yeah. But I love the cars in here, too. I just love the scenery. Sometimes you could tell it was filmed outside, but also they had some side where it was like a sound stage. It looked like a little bit props. But overall, though, I thought it was great. As far as the scenery going, San Francisco, showing the famous one road we've seen every movie. We've seen in Bullet, where it goes all the way down.
Right.
You know, so I love the scenery, the clothing, everything. Just the way he carries himself, especially when he first meets Jane Greer down in Mexico. You know, and just like he's been here a couple days, you know, whatever, you know, just and he kind of nonchalant, doesn't really care about her at first, and it doesn't even tell. And she's like, "Well," and he's like, "Well, you want to meet me again? There's this American bar over here. They play some American music stuff." Then he waits there like a stalker for 2 days. Finally, she shows up, and he's like, "Oh, fancy meeting you here." And so I'm like, at that point, I think she already knew before when she first met him that he was working for trying to find her, bring her back home. If she didn't, she knew. And they eventually, he's like, "Well, we'll place to talk and stuff, you know." And they go on this little beach here with all the boats there.
Then they make sweet love after he drives her here. I love it.
Yes. Yep. And then my favorite scene in the movie, though, is like, he's like, "We should get going." He's like, "Why? You think it's gonna rain?" No. And then it's raining. They're running to the thing. They're making out and stuff. And then she rubs his towel on his hair, gives like a noogie. It's like, gives it back to her. How do you like it?
Well, they call that, I hate that term, but that's the one they have in all the kids movies today of the past generation or so. They call it the meet cute, how you accidentally bump into somebody and whatnot. How did you meet that first person? There's that's somebody that, you know, they walk into were they standing or they like a singer in a smoky room all the way across, and then they just, you know, you get that big, huge, you know, emotional impact. Or was it just somebody you've been around that all of a sudden they said or did something differently, and all of a sudden that made you look at them in a different way, and all of a sudden you started getting interested in them. Here, when she walks in and looks around all that too, and you're like, that's the shot. They framed it well. It was perfect because, like I say, most guys have that like as a reference point for somebody. You know, all the other dumb stuff that they have, it's just stupid and it's cute. And you don't need cute when you have adult material like this.
You could tell the Mitchum's character was thinking with his little brain, because because we're first told, you know, that, you know, well, she shot at a Kirk Douglas 4 times, hit him once, and then she ends up killing his partner when his partner finally tracks him down after they've, you know, been, you know, going all over the place. And the only reason they got caught is because they went back to like areas where they were before. If they had stayed in another state, they probably would have been as found. But so she easily just kills the guy after they have this fake fight. His hair's flying around and stuff, and she shoots the guy dead. And he's like, "What the heck? You shoot him?" He's like, "He's dead." And he's like, "Well, he was gonna talk. You knew, and you weren't gonna kill him, So I killed him because." And I'm thinking, like, right then there, that's the red flag. I'm out. It's like, but he, like a lost puppy. It's like maybe he wants what, like.
It's seduction with the forbidden fruit.
Yeah. It's forbidden fruit. It's taboo. It's like, he has the perfect girl, but he's like, yeah, but like that girl, she was dangerous. She knew the real me and stuff. And like, I could relate to her and stuff. She might be a little crazy, but I could fix her. Yeah,
you're absolutely right, and that's every flaw in any relationship is trying to change somebody else. That's a really good observation. Yeah. Well, here, based off of that, it made me think of something you said earlier on, RDV, because, we sometimes talk about, wholesome relationships and all that stuff there too. I really, for some reason, was drawn into him fishing with his lady. Oh, they're not biting a day, and they're just
Virginia,
they're having a nice little quiet, peaceful moment together as a family and all that too. And I just go, it was nice, it was cute, but I think I would have appreciated what he went through a bit more if I felt like there was more love there. Not that there wasn't, but it seemed like it was very easy for him to switch it on and go back to what he did before. You know what I'm saying? Rather than like, I'm sorry, baby, I have to do this because if not, our life will be in danger, or some stupid ass speech.
If Joe would have threatened the girl, it would have been much more believable for me, at least that sense.
If it were Humphrey Bogart, we would have probably gotten at where he's cynical and pissy, because he does that better than Mitchum. Mitchum's more of the, yeah, I'm fucked. I know there's nothing I can do about it. And I agree, because sometimes we feel like a Mitchum, sometimes we feel like a Bogart.
Well, that's the big sleep of Lauren Bacall. She's playing him throughout the most of the movie, and he knows it, but he's still, even with the guy in the casino, and I just love the go back and forth between that stuff. This, like, he knew it was being played, but let's just say that the girl got the upper hand for the most part. Yeah, but
well, the modern terminology would be he never recaptured or
he was whipped
frame with her. Yeah, he was whipped. Absolutely, he was whipped, and that's a shame, because you look at Robert Mitchum, you go, man, Robert Mitchum's not a guy that's going to get whipped. And it's like, yeah, we all get whipped at one point as a guy.
One of the things I really did like about the movie, though, is his relationship with the kid. When the guy Joe shows up looking for him, he's like, well, I don't know where they are. So the kid plays kind of like, oh, I can read lips, sure, no. And he goes there, and then he's like, look, I can do. They're doing sign language. He's like, hey, and he's doing it so she can't see. Virginia can't see, and he's like, and then like so they have this little like bond, a little like way of communicating, and he's kind of like a helper, for him. But then he turns on him at the end. Broke code, bro. You broke it. But like I said, overall, I love the fact that this is in black and white, because if this had been in color, it'd still be in black and white without smoking. There's
color noir just doesn't work.
It doesn't.
It does not. No.
Yeah. It just doesn't.
And us watching the Hammer films, movies like The Sats and stuff like that, and then watching them black and white, yeah, I love color movies, but I also like black and white, because just like they just certain things pop in black and white, certain things pop better in color. I've been telling everybody I've been reading the Walking Dead books, which was originally played in black and white. Now I'm reading color, and noticing there's a lot more things different. How the mood changes when you put it in color. Or in black and white, you don't notice as much, and you're focused on certain things they want you to focus on. But once you get in color, then you start seeing the little detail off the side that didn't matter before. So you kind of get distracted. So I kind of like that these movies were in black and white, because they were very like, well, that's what it was. And the gray was pretty much the character. They're somewhere in between. They're good and evil. They're kind of mixed in there. You're confused, and it's so it really fit for the noir films.
I'll throw this one technical thing out there too, because for my final comment, and then I'll just listen to you guys here, is that I think it's a great film. I think everybody should see it, in that if you only have a couple films that are noir to see, this is definitely up there on the list. Night of the Hunter's another one, and other actors as well. But it's phenomenal. It's great. But is a quick aside, but it's relevant to what we're talking about. Just the way you were talking about the scenes here, RDV, I've got, I think, a 27-inch monitor at home. It's a nice one and all that. I don't quite do 4K. I do 2K stuff or whatever. And I've been looking at upgrading, doing the 4K thing. We've got the big screen TV downstairs, like a lot of people do. They're mainstream now, right? And of course, Netflix and all these major channels, unless you pay extra for it, don't necessarily stream in HD or UHD. But I saw a display unit of the organic LED monitors that are out there now, and the big selling point for them is the fact that the blacks that they have on there are like legit black, not a color that puts together looks black. And I always wondered if you took an old, high def print, like say of this one, or like Night of the Hunter is probably a better example, right? Because of how they shot it. If you took that and watched that like on an organic LED monitor versus a regular TV, would it look that much better? In other words, I just don't know when I go to these old film festivals here in town once in a blue moon and see an old film, if the print I'm seeing is the best print that's available. And the way they do lighting today with digital lenses and all that, they often have the brightness way too low. So I just don't know if we're getting the right contrast in it. Because I tell you, I had an old version of this and watched it, and then I got an HD version of it, and it was like night and day. And I just don't mean pixels. I just mean the blackness and the contrast and stuff. But to me, that's another thing about black and white. The sharper it is, you almost have to have it for it to work. If it's just like a regular print, it's not going to be that good or have that kind of impact.
I've noticed that a lot of movies get changed once they get on the VHS or Laserdisc, or either it gets brightened or darkened for whatever reason. It's just the way they're transferred, and then they put a release that. So then I forgot when I was watching. They just it was the original The Running Man. The Running Man, they did that, and then they did it on Blu-ray. It just looked horrible versus what you thought in the theater. And then they decided to bring it back again and do it on a reprint, release itself, and they fixed it. And you actually could see the background. The background's actually in focus again, because whatever transfer they did before, really when they showed the cityscape and stuff, the Los Angeles area, from that, and it was just really fuzzy, really grainy, dark. But then they fixed it where it restored it was supposed to be, and you can actually just make it more fun or detailed. So yeah. Unfortunately, sometimes they hire people who don't know what they're doing, and they end up ruining the print. And it sometimes it can really change the movie for you. If it's meant to be like in a certain tone and it's in a different color tone, it just seems off.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you'd sent me a separate link there about somebody commenting on one of the greatest stunts this person thought in the James Bond franchise of The Spy Who Loved Me when he jumps off. And I've talked about that when I've reviewed those films.
The ski jump.
Yeah, the ski jump with the Union Jack flag and all that. That's a real stunt, real lighting, everything.
Roger Moore did himself. That's good.
Well, yeah. He has the sex stunt team and ski stunt team, yeah. But I mean, it's like Slinger's putting a note in here about CRTs and plasmas do black really well. You see that in video games today, where like people don't know how to make highly detailed games. They think the engine's really good, so it's automatically going to be that way, and it's not. And the stunt for the James Bond one, Spy Who Loved Me, I've heard many people say we don't know how to do that anymore. And I've talked this before at length, RDB, about practical effects and stunt and choreography that most people don't know how to do it. And everything looks like the same. The
very opening scene of this movie, because a lot of times I'm already like you see North the West, you can tell he's on a turn driving. That's on a fake. It's a green screen behind him. They're not moving at all. Right. When he show Joe driving in his convertible, it's actually him driving.
Yes.
And the camera is attached to the back. They must have put the tailgate or whatever. And you can tell him just driving in, and it looks really cool. It looks authentic, and I always love that kind of stuff.
It makes a huge difference.
Yes, but but still, there's something cool about when Robert Mitchum driving the car with Virginia Huston, and you see it from his angle, his side, and it's dark. It's only driving, and then he goes into the stove. 10 years ago, let me tell you a story. 10 years ago, kid, and like it just goes into the whole entire thing, and I love that. Even though they're not really driving, I still love that setup. The going into a flashback.
If I saw Robert Mitchum sitting in a chair in a mall while his grandkids played, there's a part of me that would stop and look at him and go, "Man, that guy looks fucking cool." I don't know. He just has that look about him. I don't know. I'm sounding stupid, but
Mitchum
have it, and he's got it to me.
Certain actors I've come out with, Clint Eastwood, Robert Mitchum, Humphrey Bogart. Mm-hmm. You see these guys, and you're like, man, that guy. I want to go hang out with that guy. That guy has some stories. So
Speaking of stories, Eric, your final story for the night.
Not saying Robert Mitchum was cool, but when he did the movie with the Yakuza, the actual Yakuza approached him and said, if you need anything taken care of, let us know. Now, I said, whether he was playing, I don't know if dupe is the right word in this movie, or just someone completely despicable, like, was it Max Cady? Was that his name in Cape Fear? And Night of the Hunter, which I said, I don't know if I want to see that again because he was so disturbing in that. But or playing a good guy. He had that, or like I said, like Rob just said, if he was sitting on a park bench or at the mall watching his grandkids play, with one exception. Rob, have you ever seen a movie called Friends of Eddie Coyle?
I think so, but I could not tell you anything about it. The name is familiar.
He's just like a wormy loser in it, and it's just so you're just not used to seeing Robert Mitchum like that. But I said, because a lot of people don't give him credit for being any kind of actor, but just playing variations of Robert Mitchum, that was enough. Because I think he got one nomination in his career, and it was in like 1944. So he was basically ignored by the critics. But I said it. But then what do they know? How many dozens of Robert Mitchum movies are still being watched every day?
Yep.
Yeah.
I was looking at Wikipedia. They actually had they always do like the reception of the movie. Guy in 1948 or 47 when the movie came out, he said the movie is like scenery is great, but the plot was weak. Like I said, it's hard to find. Like I said, honestly, for this movie, it is really hard to find people to say anything negative about it, though. That's the thing. I was really
it stood the test of time. I mean, maybe people didn't realize what they had there.
1947. It's almost 100 years old.
Yeah, it's weird that you say that, but it's like sometimes having a good movie isn't having a good movie. It's having nothing bad in it, and I don't mean watered down so everybody likes it. It's just that quality control, right? A certain level of quality you're going to have, and then boom, we release it. Not just it's functional. Let's just throw it together and send it out or whatever. I mean, there's no quality in anything today. Clothes, food, entertainment, pop culture, for the most part, it's all probably the worst I think it's ever been in my lifetime, and I just don't see it changing because there's no standards anymore. And back then, whether it's the Hays Code or just what it would take for somebody to become a A-lister like a Robert Mitchum, and the fact that you sit there and tell us truly that, well, he's done all these great things, really hasn't been nominated for it, just goes to show that a lot of times, like with voting stuff in sports, all that bullshit's popularity in politics. It doesn't really matter. The eye test is what matters. And Robert Mitchum passes that every time.
One other thing about why maybe you don't see these kind of movies being made other than all the things I've already mentioned. People aged differently 80 years ago because life was harder. It's hard to get these guys had a world weary look. Even a guy like Mitchum, who was barely, I think he was 40 when he made, or like 39 when he made this. And you get guys like Matt Damon's pushing 60. He looks like a kid.
He does.
I don't know if you could give these guys enough makeup to give them that look that these guys just had.
That was Peter Cushing. Look at how distinguished him and Christopher Lee, how those guys looked as they aged.
Well, Peter Cushing looked 80 when he was 25.
He's smoking a heater and a pipe in every scene, too.
That's what it is. A lot of us don't smoke. That's why we look so baby-faced now.
Well, the tobacco back then, I don't think it was nearly as strong as it is today either.
It is true, though. He brings a point. A lot of people were like, you worked in a farm or you worked in a factory, you worked labor, and there wasn't
expectancy wasn't nearly what it is today, and
you were lucky if you got the 30 in your mid 30s or 40s, and then especially by age 6, or I think it was by age 40, weren't you retired?
Yeah, I think we were talking about the other night. Rob, have you seen Guess Who's Coming to Dinner?
Yes.
Do you remember that Spencer Tracy died 3 weeks after the filming ended on that?
I do now that you say
Yeah,
it.
so it's but I mean, and that factors into. Do you remember how he looked in that?
Not off the top of my head.
But well, like he
Normal,
looked
I would think.
85. But he was. Next time you see it, go. He was 4 years older than I am now when he made that movie, and like I said, he just looked ancient because these guys. I mean, hell, he looked grizzled at 40.
I'd say the only person that really looks kind of grizzled now would be John Bernthal.
Well, I said, I talked about this. The only actors that I think look like men, I mean, just like in the classic sense of old Hollywood, are George Clooney and John Hamm. There's not many others.
True.
Hamm's a bit of a goof, but physically I would agree. What about and he's certainly the age, but I've got to throw Russell Crowe up there.
It's hard to look at him now and just not see. Yeah, they ought to. While he looks like this, they have him grow a beard and let him be Orson Welles in something, because he's getting up there in weight.
Yeah. Dual cycle, Russell, please. HRT, buddy. I love you. I want you around for a little bit.
Yeah, I feel. Yeah, I said. Yeah, John Hamm is. Yeah, Don
he does
Drake
have the classic old feature look.
He looked like a man. I mean, that's. Because I said you had Brad Pitt, Matt Damon, Leonardo DiCaprio. They look like kids, even as they age into their 50s and 60s.
Right.
Man, that's such an interesting thought, because I've thought about that too, because a lot of these guys are older, and if they're heavily tattooed up or got some weird hair or something, just the way they dress and carry themselves, I don't think of them as a man. I just think of them as a unique person, whatever, right? Everybody kind of does that to stand out from the crowd. Back then, people mostly wore suits and tried not to do it, so everybody was more distinguished in that sense and carried themselves with a bit more, old school charm, rather than look at me, I'm trying to gather attention. I mean,
so
yeah, there's very few that you could do that with.
When I was working on scheduling this night, and I was talking to Morani about this movie, there was one quote from this movie that really just sums up the whole entire movie and his character. Robert Mitchum says, "It was the bottom of the barrel, and I scraped it, but I didn't care. I had her."
That's a man with no standards. Which show that standards are relative. You can want a 9 or a 10, but you might have to get a 3 or 4 to get there.
But does that really describe the whole entire, like, his character, everything?
It does make me question what he had at the beginning with his new relationship. That's the one thing that's kind of flummoxing here a little bit, because a part of me took the religious aspect and said, maybe this is what heaven looks like to him, and he's getting a taste of it. Now he's really going to hell, and he wakes up and he has to go back and pay for everything and die. Okay, well, you had happiness for a moment, right? But now a part of me is gone where he's just kind of like dead inside, and he wants to feel alive. That's why he's, like you were saying, Eric, he's willing to jump back into meeting her, right? Yeah. Because it's an awful thing to say, but I think you could argue both ways on that.
Yeah, the life he had built was superficial and never going to be enough. That's why it was so easy to go back.
And there's plenty of sororities out there that marry the nice guy, but boy, if you know everything why they're in a sorority,
I just love the way when he first sees her at the Kirk Douglas place again, and then he's like, "I'm gonna go retire. I'm tired," because you've been up and all driving. So he goes and I'm going to my room to retire, and then she follows me and he's like, "Get out of here! I have to sleep in here." it's like just go away, because she's all giving him
I need to get some sleep.
He's like, just like, she's all trying to like, "Oh, you don't understand. I had nowhere to go," and blah blah blah, and then he's like, because in the back of his mind, he knew that she stole the $4,000, or $40,000, what it was, because he saw, especially at the end, his little flashback story, he found her checkbook with the money in it. So
yeah, but that was part of the flashback. That had already been established when he went back the second time. Because he went back the second time for an entirely different assignment.
No, that's what I'm saying. No, he said he'd already been used by her 10 years ago. She found this
I don't know if it was 10 years, but he had already.
I think he said it was like 10 years or something like that. Because I think, what's his name? Douglas Kirk. I want to say Kirkman. Douglas Kirk. Kirk Douglas had said that. Yeah, it said like it'd been like 10 years. You know, don't worry. It's like I left my emotions. He said I left my emotions behind 10 years ago. So I'm assuming that's when it was. You know, that's how long it'd been because 10 years. You know, I guess it's like I said. That's that fantasy we all have. It's like, well, the what if. What if
we didn't age it all in 10 years? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
if you haven't seen this film, ladies and gentlemen, go see it. It's fantastic. Yeah. It's really a gold standard up there. I think we all agree on that, regards to our interpretations and our personal likes about it too. So, obviously, I want to thank everybody for showing up tonight, Slinger, and everybody else there too. Eric, obviously, if you're showing up, I know this is one on your short list too. We always think about you, especially when we do the extreme classics. We haven't done one in a while. And RDB, I want to thank you for covering tonight, as I had some personal commitments out there that I was doing, so I wasn't able to get on tonight, but I'm glad I was able to join you guys for really what's going to be an awesome movie too. So good night, everybody. Good night now.
Good night, kids.
Here's looking at you, kid.